Hi, Bobby. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Rav?
I am great, thank you. I've been so excited to speak to you because I want to talk all about your blog. Bobby Speaks underscore is the Instagram, right?
Yep,
Perfect. And kind of just give me an overview as to what it is that your main message is that you want to kind of put across to everybody.
definitely. I've started this platform to really create awareness about mental health, looking at not just specifically, but the South Asian community. I think there isn't enough out there. So when I was going through certain periods of my life, there wasn't any kind of page or blog or forum that I felt spoke to me.
Yeah.
So that's my main aim now, is to create awareness about lots of different topics and taboo topics as well that people don't typically speak about from a male perspective.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially in a South Asian community, because I mean, I've got a brother and stuff like that, and I do really feel like things that are taboo in maybe white communities is this whole other thing in Asian communities. Like, talk about taboo, it's a whole, that's like an understatement for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Things that especially the white community, what we would consider taboo wouldn't be taboo for them.
Yeah.
So things, just small things such as what you're going to study can be a taboo topic, down to anything more granular and more personal. So sexuality, masculinity, relationships.
Yeah, like everything. It's
Yeah, and
even
it's difficult because we're, pardon?
outfits, like what you're wearing.
Yeah,
That,
so exactly, like I've been told so many times before, like you dress like a white person, and for me that's like, okay, what does that actually mean? Um, yeah, my family still don't understand the concept of ripped jeans. They always say, what's the point in spending more money for less material?
yeah, oh my god, my if I buy like a mini skirt or like a crop top, my mum's like, how much do you pay for that? And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
20 quid or whatever. She's like, 20 quid for half a top. And I'm like, it's not half a top, mum.
yeah,
It's a crop
I
top.
I could have made that myself.
Yeah. And in their defense, they probably could have.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
No, that's great. I love that. And I definitely agree that I think especially like you said for yourself, when you're looking for things that can kind of help you and that you relate to, things that have kind of been produced by the white community and blogs and stuff aren't always as relatable as they might seem, because your white counterparts actually live quite different lives to kind of people in the Asian community, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I can agree more. Sometimes the conversations I'll have with my friends who are white sometimes struggle to understand the way that South Asians think, because there's a huge disparity between the two. So it's trying to normalize it to them, which is difficult because sometimes you can't even normalize it yourself, and even if you are South Asian.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of it as being kind of trapped between two kind of places where you don't quite fit into the white community, but you don't really truly fit into the Asian one either, because I obviously don't know about you, but for myself, I don't speak Punjabi fluently. I don't kind of know everything about all the cooking, and I'm not, like, I'm third generation immigrant. You can't expect that much from me, but at the same
Yeah,
time, I don't fit into the white community either. So it's this weird like limbo where you're not quite kind of fitting into anywhere. So it's amazing
yeah.
you've got kind of a blog. Is that something that you've experienced?
Yeah, 100%. I think in terms of, I definitely have one up there because I do speak Punjabi,
Oh,
um, and I can cook as well, but that's only down to, I would say, more so my grandparents, having spent a lot of time with them, learning how to cook, and also because they live here but they don't speak English.
oh,
So
that's the thing. That's what you got to do. My grandparents speak English, and I fully blame them. It's their fault.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I've had to learn Punjabi in order to kind of have any sort of relationship with them.
Yeah,
So I can definitely agree with you and relate to actually the point that you made about being with the brown community and not necessarily fitting in 100%, but then being with the white community and also not fitting in there. So it's that kind of no man's land that I sometimes find myself in, where it's like, what what do I do? How do I act? And that's the difficult part.
yeah. That's 100%. I totally agree. I mean, my Punjabi's all right. I just wouldn't dare say I'm fluent, because then people
Yeah.
ask, like, no, no. And I did make one sabji a few weeks ago, so I'm
So
basically speaking a Punjabi
which
prince.
one?
I made not gobi. Gobi's hard. I made what did I make? Badao.
Oh, okay, yeah, I love aubergines all the
Yeah,
way.
aubergines are
All,
all right, but
yeah.
gobi is cauliflower, and that's difficult, and that to me can go wrong. So I thought I
Yeah,
better.
you've got to get it right. You don't want the cauliflower to be too crunchy, but not too soft either.
This is exactly this is what all the elders have said to me. So I thought I'm gonna play it safe, and we'll go with the aubergine one, or then the gajra, which is like the carrots,
Oh
because
yeah, easy. Yeah, love
they're
that.
achievable for me. But maybe I'll work my way up to gobi when my Punjabi is more fluent. So, did you spend a lot of time with your grandparents then when you were kind of growing up? Did that influence you a lot? Do you think?
Yeah, massively. So my mum and dad were out at work. So I pretty much was raised by my grandma and granddad. So spent a lot of time with them, and that was a huge influence for me because you pick up the language really quickly, and I built a really good relationship with them. So I think a lot of it comes from that, which is why sometimes I find myself closer to my grandparents than my own parents.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, that must have actually had an influence as well on the way that you kind of. So obviously, I feel slightly removed because I am third generation, like I said, and then my parents were second. So their views obviously have been slightly diluted from their parents, and then mine
Mm.
same towards these kind of issues like masculinity and sexuality and things like that. But if you were kind of around your grandparents a lot, do you think that kind of affected the way that you felt towards those issues?
I would say a little bit. I think as a person, I'm quite headstrong anyway. So certain things that they would say, I kind of just would block out just because that's coming from their view. I mean, they're from India. Their generation is a lot different to mine. But it's definitely one of those things. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from that, which I've really grown out of now, is worrying what people think. Like, what will people say?
Yeah.
That's the standard line that my grandma and granddad used to say.
Classic.
So that's definitely been the thing that's probably impacted me the most is whenever making a certain decision, it's my kind of grandma's voice in the back of my head saying, what will people say, and that's something that you have to grow out of.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, I love that you feel like you can have this kind of real deep love for them and everything like that, but then still appreciate that they weren't right about everything.
Yeah,
Because things were just sort of different there. They were different times, different like life to what we
yeah,
have here. So that's really great. Um, one of your blog posts actually in particular that I found really really interesting was the one about. I've just got your blog up here to have a look.
yeah,
Um, was the one about toxic masculinity.
yeah,
And I saw that you put some little like there was little oh, like posts. No,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, about it, and then you wrote a little bit about it. Can you tell me a bit more about that? Where that kind of came from? Because I know you said you've had some like personal experiences
Yeah.
with issues like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of growing up, so it was me and my younger brother. I was almost like the daughter mum never had. She trained me to cook, to clean. So quickly, my interests that I kind of formed were cooking. I wouldn't say cleaning, obviously, but cooking. Um, that was a passion of mine. A lot of family members would typically say in their first responses, that's what women do. Women should be in the kitchen, and that's typically something that I've always been up against. Another one is fashion. I'm really into clothing, always have been. Again, that's been labeled as something that typically women prefer. So for me, that post was really inspired by speaking out about toxic masculinity because it really does impact people. So especially in our community where men typically sit in another room and drink, the women will be in the kitchen cooking. Um, I've
Relatable.
yeah, I've never really understood the concept. I've never believed in it. I've never understood it. And for me, the reason why it's so toxic is because we are conditioned to like certain things because men do. So the fact that we are ingrained and it's almost natural, it's innate in us to not do certain things because we think that men can't do that, is so toxic. And for me, I'm trying to create this platform to speak about topics like this because of the fact that men need to know, especially in our community, that they can like whatever they like. And even though that sounds simple, it's breaking through generations. No.
Yeah. Oh my god, I think that is so brave. I love that you've done this, and I'm really impressed because it's just brave. It really is. Like people might, I think maybe white communities might look at that and be like, yeah, but you just don't sit in the room. But it's like, but you do. Like I find it difficult. And when I was a kid, I was like, oh, okay, so I'll go sit with the boys and my mum and my aunties and whatever, go do whatever, and that's fine because I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm 23 and I'm kind of I'm not a kid anymore. And I do
Yeah.
feel like if I'm sat in the other room, I'm like, I've got to go help. And my brother doesn't feel that.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel that.
That's the thing, and that's so, I've seen that so many times, and I do genuinely think that now, if women are, or let's say people your age, for example, are getting involved in things that typically men do, it's not frowned upon as much as if men were to do
get
the same
involved.
thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally agree with that. Yeah. So me kind of having a full-time job and being quite like maybe career driven, nobody
yeah,
thinks that's odd. But maybe
no,
if a male was kind of to say the opposite and say I want to be even as far as extreme as saying like, well, I want to be a stay-at-home father, people would
yeah.
be, what?
Oh, I can just imagine what people would say, and that it just isn't okay. And some days I do think that we've come a long way in terms of addressing these issues, but then sometimes you'll be in a family gathering and someone will say something and it's automatically just triggers for me those thoughts of, we can't be creating an environment like that that makes people, especially men, feel a certain way. And so I think a big problem is the generations before us still feel a certain way, and if you're raising your kids in a way that makes them feel the same way, it's just a pattern. So it really takes someone to go against the grain and speak about it. I mean, I've definitely voiced it so many times in my family get-togethers, and it's like, oh, okay, Bobby's going at it again, but it's really important.
I'm the same in my house. Don't even worry about that. Oh my god, you just get known, don't you, in the family as the one who's always bringing up those topics, and like
Yeah,
that's just it. But I think that's also interesting because in comparison to white communities where I think there's that idea that women can't win. And so, for example, like if a woman was to work, that's fine. But if she was
mm,
to work and not stay at home with her children, is she a great mother? And if she stays at home with her children and doesn't work, she's a bit lazy. Whereas a man
mm,
goes out and works, fine, breadwinner, doesn't stay at home. Oh my God, he's amazing, father of the year. And that kind of idea, I think, is quite prevalent in white communities, but hasn't quite translated through to Asian communities, like you said, where I think it's I've never really thought about that, but it is true. Like if I think if my brother said no, I don't want to work, I want to stay at home and be a housekeeper and stuff, my family would be like, eh,
yeah, exactly.
like they wouldn't. And that's very, very different to white communities, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And you see that all the time. Like the conversations that I have that we're having now, I typically have with my white counterparts, and they sometimes are baffled by that thought process or logic. So there's just such a big disparity, and that's what I guess I'm really trying to kind of close the gap on.
Yeah, that's so true because I really never thought about it until you just said, like when you first said, I thought, wait, no, men always come out as the winner, like in that situation. And thought, no, that is only in white communities really that happens. That's not really as true in kind of minority cultures.
Yeah, I mean, just think about, for example, Indian women who go and get their suits tailored and amended, and it's a woman typically that's doing that. Now, imagine your brother openly saying to his family, well, I want to become a seamstress and start doing that. I'm sure that a lot of people would frown upon it because it's not typically a masculine job.
Although the best suit I ever had sewn was by a man. He lives in Suffolk, and oh my god! And literally, he was the talk. There was a queue in wedding season outside his house and around the corner. It was shocking. But
God.
definitely, I had the same response when I went there and we were going. I was like, "What? He's a man? I've never seen that before." But
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. And this is a lesson to all
yeah.
want to do it. He was excellent. Got my size spot on. No
There you
one.
go.
This is me encouraging anybody who can sew well, go and do it because it's honestly a skill. um so where does that kind of leave you then? What are your aspirations kind of moving forward with this? Because obviously I know that looking at it again, Bobby Speaks _ is the tag handle if you want to go and check it out, and I would highly recommend that to kind of people as well who are not just South Asian but white people as well, if you want to kind of try and understand how it works a little bit more. but it's kind of new. You're just getting into it, and I love the kind of way that the post is on Instagram, so you don't have to then go elsewhere, and it just makes it really accessible. But what's your kind of plan then moving forward?
So moving forward, I'm getting involved in quite a few projects at the moment through Instagram. So I'm going to be featuring on a podcast. So I'm starting that in July with another lady who I've met on Instagram speaking about these topics. And I think from there are some other projects that I'm working on with other influencers as well in terms of speaking out about these topics. It's been quite difficult because you're trying to build a platform and it needs to be the right platform. It needs to have the right audience in order to really evoke emotion and get people speaking about it. So for me, going forwards, it's just creating as much awareness as possible. And actually, I think a lot of it has to have a personal touch. And the feedback that I've got from people is the fact that they feel that they can buy into it because there's a lot of my own personal experiences in there. So my plan really is to just keep going. Whatever I think about, I'm just putting it kind of pen to paper as such, and just writing it without thinking too much about what people will think.
I love that. I think that's kind of like you said, the main thing that we kind of, in a good and a bad way. But I think one of the main things we've all taken from our grandparents is that what will people think is it's
Yeah.
just a classic, isn't it? I don't think any Indian person could tell you they haven't heard that from their grandparents. So it's amazing that you're kind of taking that and like putting it on its head a little bit, turning it on its head and making something more from it.
Yeah.
One post I did just quickly want to mention, I'm just having a look at it now, was your personal story where you said that you'd had kind of a bit of an incident when you were at uni where a bottle was kind of thrown at you.
Yeah.
Awful. I'm like
Yeah.
horrified reading that, like literally, like I'm horrified. Like,
Yeah.
how did you feel kind of being able to write about that? Because that's very personal, and I know when I read it, I was like, how is the world this cruel? Just how?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. To be honest, like speaking about it, I felt quite liberated. I'm able to now reflect on that situation and see so much positivity from it. I completely agree with you. My thought process again is the same as like how are people capable of that? But I truly think that that is more of a reflection of people's insecurities, and it's sad, really. I have no anger about it. I really do just feel sorry for people that feel that they need to do those kind of things. But I wrote about it because it's important to speak about these topics. I suffered a lot of anxiety after that event, naturally. And I was in final year, so you're kind of juggling final year of university.
Full as it is,
And
like,
yeah, absolutely. Studying accounting is no easy feat. So
what
yeah,
you
it was really difficult,
harder.
but a lot of my friends messaged me and yeah, well, that's just it. Like it made the process a lot harder, and it was completely random. Like I was just there with my friends at the start of the year, and it was just completely random. And there's a lot of things I've taken away from it, but I truly think that when people, especially in the South Asian community, I went to university where there was a huge South Asian population. When you look a bit different, when you act a little bit differently, and your thought process and rationale is very different, you do become an easy target. And I think it truly does come down to that. And that's where the whole masculinity piece comes in, because
Oh,
men in that community feel they need to act a certain way and take action with people who act differently compared to the traditional South Asian man.
yeah, I definitely think like toxic masculinity is it's just a massive problem. It's just a
Yeah.
huge problem that really people need to look at it. And I think a lot of people don't really understand like what the problem is. So I think it's blogs like yours that are definitely really helpful in people kind of understanding what the problem is, and if they are kind of just adhering to something because they think they should, rather
Mm.
than because that's just how they are. So and like I said, I've got a brother, I've got cousins, I've got lots of men in my life that I'm grateful that you are able to kind of post these things and be brave and talk about them, and hopefully it will allow them to give them a little bit of themselves back, and they
Mhm.
can have that freedom which you're kind of allowing for them by paving the way with blogs like this, which I love. So basically, thank you for that.
Perfect. I think one of the other things that I kind of mentioned to you before is just using social media. We're using that platform for the right things. Um, that's really important. I think prior to having this Instagram, I took a break from Instagram for 6 7 months because my relationship with it was quite toxic. It was seeking approval of others. It was posting what others wanted rather than what I wanted. So now, using this platform in an authentic way and naturally, it really is getting the right attention that I want, because I think it's people can see that it's natural.
Yeah, well, that's amazing because yeah, I think social media can have, it's got its flaws, hasn't it? So it's really important to make sure you're using it in the right way, because it can be used in the, well, it often is used in the wrong way. Like, I don't think
Mm.
a lot of the time social media controls us more than we control it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. So that's probably my kind of last thing that I wanted to cover. But yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Is just making sure you're using social media in the right way. With everything that's going on at the moment in society, people have a huge following, and even if you don't have a huge following, you could impact one or many of your followers. So it's just really important to be putting the right messaging out there.
Oh God, 100%. Like, even if one person sees it, you want to make sure that it's the right thing for them to see. Even if one
Yeah,
person takes what you've said on board, like, you've got to be
yeah,
careful
definitely.
out there.
Exactly. And I, as much as I would love to be, um, creating huge amounts of awareness and have, thousands and thousands of followers, it probably will never really get to that, because people want to see a certain thing. And if you don't necessarily provide that, then people don't always buy into it. So for me, just impacting one or, a few of my followers is really important. So the messages that I've had back are amazing. Really, really uplifting to know that people are messaging saying, that's been really inspirational and really helped me. So for me, that's when I know that I'm using social media in the right way.
That's great. I love that. I mean, what would be your one tip then to somebody who's kind of struggling with social media at the moment, or maybe isn't sure about if they're posting the right things, or like anything like that? What would be your tip?
Take a break. Take a break. 100%. Take a break, and actually reflect on why you have this, why you're using social media. What is the aim of your platform? Because for a lot of people, it might be just to give a snippet into your life, which is absolutely fine. That's what social media was created for. But when it goes beyond that, and you are going out with the sole purpose of having to get a photo that day, I've been that person. I've been out with my friends and said, we have to get a photo here. I need to put this on Instagram. And if I haven't got the right photo, it's ruined my day. And that's not even being extreme. And I think, again, men don't speak about that because there are men who feel the exact same way.
That's so
Uh,
that's another point that I would have never thought. But like, I feel like that quite a lot, especially with my kind of radio page. But you don't consider that men would feel the same way. And like, even now talking to you, everything you're saying, I'm just like, whoa, I never even thought of that. So
yeah,
it's also great for women to see your page and stuff and kind of read up on it as well, because I think there are a lot of things that, I mean, sometimes it's hard, isn't it? You do kind of only see things from your own perspective. It's difficult to consider another person's perspective on something that you would never even, didn't occur to you.
absolutely. Like, you do just have to take a step back. I I think what the reason why I decided to do it is I went onto Instagram and looked at the time I was spending on there a day, and I
Mm.
looked at it and was just absolutely mind blown by the fact that I was spending 2 hours plus on Instagram a day, but it wasn't for creating awareness. It was all about me. It was all about where I was, who I was with, where I was going, all of that. And now, if I flip that around and look at my usage of Instagram for the page I'm doing now, I know it's the right amount of time to also be speaking about topics that are important. So I just took a step back and then took time to reflect and say, okay, what do I actually want to achieve with Instagram? Because for me, I know that there's some messages I want to get out, and I need to take a step back to understand that.
Yeah, the right time for the right reason. So it's that balance,
Yeah,
isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
great. Thank you so much. It's been great to speak to you, and I feel like it's really given me an insight. This is something that I don't think, I thought I knew about, but I don't think I do. So I'm definitely going to be making sure I kind of learn more, educate myself, and keep up to date on these kind of things.
Yeah.
And it was great to speak to you as well.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for your time.